to the West Milton Council Workshop for February 25th, 2025. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mayor Hurst.
Present.
Mr. Sodders. Mr. Fogel. Ms. Gregory.
Yes.
Ms. Metz.
Yes.
Mr. Horn.
Here.
Mr. Dorman.
Here. All right, first thing on the agenda tonight is the CDBG Neighborhood Revitalization Grant. Manager Sheridan.
We're going to have the folks from Choice One are going to educate us on this opportunity. This would be something we've not been able to apply for in the past, and we are only eligible now because the latest census, HUD has determined that the village is 51.2% low to moderate income. So we can now do projects that benefit the community-wide. And this is an application that, as they'll explain, will go through the county, and there are multiple programs that we can consider. So I'll turn it over to Kay, please.
You need to stand anywhere in particular.
Podium, if you would.
I'm Kay Borchers, I'm with Choice One, if I haven't met you guys before. I just want to give a little quick background on the CDBG program and give you a little information about what it takes to put an application together that's coming up here in April. So CDBG stands for Community Development Block Grant. If you're not aware, it's administrated by the Ohio Department of Development. The Department of Development, thank you. The Department of Development,
Thank you.
The Department of Development, they give the money to the county, and then the county administrates it. So the county administrates all this money. If you've ever met Dan Sewerdeck at the county, he manages this particular program in the Community Development Office at Miami County. As Jeff mentioned, the village is now eligible due to 2020 census data. It makes you low to moderate income by place, meaning the whole village can benefit from CDBG dollars. Otherwise, it was only maybe portions of the community that were designated low to moderate income via census or income survey, which I think you've done in the past. If you recall the downtown parking lot that was redone 10 years ago, Andy?
Yeah, tear it out.
Ish. You guys tore down a building and put it, that was CDBG dollars, so this is a similar kind of funding. One program within the CDBG program is called the Neighborhood Revitalization Grant. We call it NRG for short. This is a program that you can apply to for $750,000 for a set of what CDBG calls activities. So each activity is a different kind of infrastructure, we'll say, within the community that benefits specifically residential parts of the community. That is what this focus is. And it's focused on creating health and safety and a better quality of life for low to moderate income residents, which in this village's case would be everybody, since you've been deemed low to moderate income by place. So an activity might be water improvements, sewer improvements, paving improvements, reconstruction, sidewalks, park improvements, any public infrastructure. And how this program works is the community would solicit information from residents of where they think improvements could be made to better quality of life, like parks, like sidewalks, things like that. And then the community takes staff input and elected official input and creates what I call a slate of projects. So there has to be at least 3 to 4 different activities. So that means water, sewer, paving, parks. That would be 4 different activities under the CDBG programs. And puts together a slate of projects that can total up to, can total anything you want, but the most you can apply for is $750,000.
So, not to interrupt.
No, please.
So if we had matching funds, like to join with a project, say it exceeded that amount, that's
Yes.
something that we would put into the proposal?
Correct, yes. So what a lot of communities do with this is they come up with, say, 7 or 8 projects that they think would fit, have a consultant like Choice One or whomever provide an estimate so that you have an idea of what it'll really cost. You submit the application to the county. That application would list all, let's say you came up with 6 projects that equaled roughly $750,000 that we would estimate. The county, if it gets approved And how that works is the county actually takes the information, submits it to the state. It would compete statewide in the NRG program. The state picks a select number of NRG projects based on their merit, their review, their scoring, however the state determines that, Ohio Department of Development. If the funds are awarded, then the projects would be designed and built, or designed and bid, and then, you would get the funding on the backside of that. CDBG, is that reimbursement? I feel like I should know this.
I thought the county paid them directly.
Yes, the county pays the contractor directly. Thank you, Andy, for reminding me of how that works. So the county bids it, the county administrates the funds, but any local match would be on the responsibility of the village. The village, typically the county will ask for at least 10% in local match, but they often recommend that be the engineering. That way the county doesn't have to procure the engineer. Otherwise, the county would have to handle the engineering if CDBG was paying for it. So if the village kicks in 10%, let's say that covers the engineering, then the $750,000 would be the grant to actually perform construction. Now, if you estimated $900,000 worth of projects and you wanted to provide additional match, you could. Or if there's cost overruns, you could, the village would be responsible for anything over that.
Now, I'm going to guess this is competitive within the county.
It would be competitive within the county. Miami County has told us that Pleasant Hill is submitting an application this year, but that doesn't mean that only one community from Miami County would get awarded. What it means is that statewide, if every county puts in one and there's 88 and they only award 50, I don't know what the number is, I'm guessing, both Pleasant Hill and West Milton could get the funds. It would be based on the merit of each project individually.
So I'm sure I'm going to be Googling the heck out of this later tonight.
Sure.
And I'm really trying to listen to what you're saying instead of scratch down notes. It would be great if you guys could email us some of this information.
Yeah, sure.
Because I really want to listen and not just
I understand.
chicken scratch.
It's a lot of information.
Are we more competitive if we, like instead of the 10%, we say, all right, we're willing to go in 20? Does that make us more competitive? Than
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Especially if you're not asking for the full 750, which a lot of communities do, because they should. That's what they're eligible for. But if you were only asking for, say, 500,000, that's another 250 the state can use somewhere else. That's not to say that 750 isn't the right number to ask for. It depends who else is submitting in the state. So
you'd want to know where you're at competitively and what your odds are.
Yep.
Yep.
The county was very supportive. So they would work to try to get the projects funded. The next deadline is March 12th for what the county will do. They'll have a hearing. The first hearing will be tomorrow. They have to have a series of hearings by law. The first hearing, they'll say the CDBG applications are open for the year.
Where does that hearing happen?
The hearing is it's probably the commissioner's room. I have a letter here that gives that information. Just a second. I can look it up for you. Slowly, clearly. The first hearing I know is February. I know it's tomorrow. I'll look for that in a moment. The hearing is tomorrow. The commissioners will say the CDBG application period is open. We need what they call a community development implementation strategy meeting. That is March 12th. It's held during the county's. The county has a council. If this sounds familiar to you. On March 12th at the Miami County Engineers Highway Garage, and I can give you a copy of all this information.
That'd be great.
And that's when the village would need to attend that and say, hey, we'd like to submit an NRG grant, and these are the 5 or 6 projects we're thinking of. So by March 12th, to be eligible for this round of applications, the village would need to have an idea of the 5 or 6 potential projects to put together as part of this particular program. And then the county has to do a bunch of paperwork around that, and then the formal applications with all the details, the actual dollar amounts, exhibits, things like that would be due April 11th to Dan at the county. Yeah, Friday, April 11th. And I can find that hearing date for you. I know I have it in my email. I just don't have it here sitting in front of me.
So if one of us wanted to be present for that tomorrow, would that be
Yeah.
a good idea to put a face with our interest? And
It doesn't hurt. It certainly doesn't hurt.
Jeff?
I want to say it's in the morning or
Going out of
early
town to a
afternoon.
conference.
Okay. Well,
Sorry, or I would be there.
I'll just grab my phone and I can tell you when it is. I think you're looking for me, aren't you?
I'm sorry, I don't want to feel like I'm putting you on the spot for all this, but
No.
this is great info, first time
problem.
hearing for me anyway, and
problem
sounds like
at
a
all.
wonderful opportunity for a community like ours.
Do communities get awarded more than once?
It can
Yeah.
I'm sure it can happen.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they'd look at the application and think, no, we've awarded you in the past, you know.
It's been a
you
while
rank-
since the last one, though.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, the county is the first level of application review, right? So they already know who else has applied throughout the county. They see what's going to come up every year. You guys get money every year. They don't want to award it to you, but they try to spread that around, you know. And they want to have a good application to the state so it's successful, so.
The hearing tomorrow is at 1:35 PM in the Commissioners' hearing room at Miami County. And again, they'll say CDBG is open. By law, they have to talk about CHIP, which is a housing program. They have to talk about fair housing in the county and a few other issues. That is, kind of blanket across the state of what folks in the CDBG program have to do. But that first hearing is tomorrow. And then the important date is March 12th to have someone at that meeting to kind of present to the county. These are the 5, 6, 7, whatever it turns out to be.
You know what time
projects.
that meeting is, Kay?
That meeting, I believe, is at 7 p.m.
I'll be there.
Yes, 7 p.m. It's held at the Miami County Engineers Highway Garage over where Paul Huelskamp and his team is.
And our new status helps us be more competitive on this.
It makes you eligible.
Period.
Period.
Okay.
Correct. Previously, the village was not LMI, over 51% low to moderate income by place. So that meant you could not apply for community-wide projects. Now, because of the new census data, which new is 2020, previously we were using 2010 to 2015 data, and now the federal government is using 2020 data, and it is, because of that census data, it has West Milton as 51 point, did you say 8?
51.2, I think.
51.2, so just over that threshold of 51% low to moderate income, meaning you're eligible for this, this funding.
And I think it's important
Community-wide.
to point out, it's low to moderate. It's not poverty, it's
Correct.
moderate income, and so it's adjusted for family size. So CDBG is a program I've worked with extensively in other states, and people sometimes don't understand that it's a program that can help middle-income families, not just poverty. So it is low to moderate, and I think
Correct.
that's important to point that out.
Yeah, and I think, and if somebody, Jeff, if you know, correct me if I'm wrong, I think low to moderate income is considered 80% of the median household income
And adjusted for family size.
and adjusted for family size. So it's not a poverty level, like you
Not at
said,
all.
it's low to
Not at
moderate.
all.
So 80% of the median household income, which in West Milton, I'm not sure what yours
I don't
is
remember
these
the
days,
number
but, 50,000, 60,000, whatever it might be here in West Milton, 80% of that is considered low to moderate income by these guidelines.
I do think we take advantage of this for the years we're eligible.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Because I'm not
Yes.
sure we will be eligible by the next census.
Correct. So it'll probably be in at least, I would guess, 2030
2032.
till they get the data in. Since we just finished using 2015 data, I would assume it takes 10, you get this data, you're eligible, so to speak, for 10 years, unless they change those rules.
6,
At
10,
least.
20.
I wouldn't count on forever, but yeah,
Yeah.
we got to figure.
Right. I mean, it's not a bad thing to have low, low LMI, obviously.
We'll take advantage of
But
whatever
take-
can help us
exactly.
become a
Get more
better,
funding.
broader community. And
Absolutely.
this sounds exciting to me.
So in Troy, there used to be a I'm gonna say
CDBG.
CDBG grant, and it was for like exterior, like residential improvements. And
Okay.
so like the homeowner would apply for like up to a $5,000 grant for like
Okay.
exterior improvements. Is that something that we can consider? Or is that not is that a different?
That may be part of CDBG. It's not the part I'm most familiar with.
Okay.
That hearing tomorrow, or Dan at the county is always very responsive and very willing to answer questions, so we can ask that question for you. They have many programs specific for homeowners and homeowner improvements and things like that. I'm just not personally familiar with them.
Okay.
Business owners or
Business owners, yeah, they may have some,
downtown business district?
That would be great.
those sorts of
also.
things, yeah. And Dan could certainly speak to that. Yeah, demolition of slum or blighted abandoned homes, thank you.
Okay. And then our comprehensive land use plan, there's some information there about like things that we could take, because I, like what you said, like we have to pull the, like, get information from the community, and we did a lot of work, the planning board did a lot of work on a comprehensive land use plan. So that work, I mean, since 2020 has already been done with polling the community. So we have that information. Would that still count, or would we have to like redo that in a month's time?
Well, it's good to get, part of the CDBG input process is that, hey, we're eligible for this, and so we want your input on this now. What the information you receive back can just be guidelines of, hey, the community is most concerned about paving, the community is most concerned about sidewalk, but it's also what the council feels, what staff feels is the best to move forward with. So that's, if the public rates something super high, and that's a concern for everybody else as well, but it's, a balance of different input. That comprehensive plan polling you did could certainly help. But there is an aspect to, hey, we're doing this specifically for the CDBG Neighborhood Revitalization Grant. And so it's worth getting the public's input by then. I know that feels like a short time frame, but even if you're able to collect the information, process it a little bit before that March 12th and say, hey, the public's interested in sidewalks and paving and a park improvement, at least you have some guidelines to give the county and some input to give the county on that March 12th.
Okay, what are some best practices to gather that information?
I think the village is working on a survey to, it can be online, it could be something that you mail to citizens, it could be something that you publicize that they can pick up, something you can post on your Facebook and they can drop off or submit via like a form fire or a Survey Monkey kind of. There's really no...
You said Survey Monkey, that thing rocks.
There we go.
Just if anybody hasn't used it, it's great, especially if you've got a large volume of emails that you can send stuff out to, which I don't know, do we collect that through our village?
We have some, but we don't specifically collect the emails.
Okay, I mean,
Even if you posted a link on, your Facebook page or
Sure.
your village's website, that's one way to do it. So you could collect that information and then, even in that survey at the end, say, hey, we're going to discuss this survey information at council meeting or council workshop X on this date. Feel free to stop in and give us your opinion. And then that provides that sort of open discussion too, if folks are interested in that.
when's our next?
Day before. The day before, March 11th.
That's when the water bill is?
No, March 11th is our next meeting.
Oh.
No, when
Got
does
to
the
present
next
on March 12th, the
water
next day.
Gotcha.
bill go out? If we put a QR code or a...
Yeah, I was
about the
thinking
water
a
bill?
QR code to Survey Monkey on the water bill and
Yeah, if
get
you had-
our,
We can send out a link on the Everbridge as well.
and our social media commandos that are out there that have web presence and
Yep.
love our village,
Yeah, the community that wants to
Sure,
share it,
sure.
community organizations that want to share it, and it's just feedback. So it's, all opinions are welcome, obviously. And the questions, we gave a sample to Ben that he and Megan kind of formed it around, ask specific questions about infrastructure. It's not just what would you like to see in the village, it's specific to sidewalks and paving. I mean, maybe folks want to see, more events at the gazebo or whatever, but that's not what these questions are meant to do. Not that you couldn't use that information, but specific to this survey, Ben has it prepared so that it can be, they talk about the activities that are eligible under this particular grant.
All right, go Ben.
Thank you, Ben, for doing that.
Anything else on this topic?
Any other questions?
This
And,
is so exciting.
Great. Awesome. I'll leave, I have the letter here that has some of those dates in there. I'll write down the other date in here to make sure, highlight it before I leave here to make sure you guys have it tonight yet. And we can certainly, send it to Jeff, send it to Ben, and can pass it on as well.
If you'd share it with Ben, since I'm going to be out of the office for a couple of days, please.
Ben, can you, or Jeff, can you email us? Is it Dan Surdek?
Dan Sewerdeck, and his information will be in this letter I'll leave with you guys. His name is in here. He is, like I said, with Miami County's Community Development. He's also the planning and zoning manager for the county, but he's super responsive. If you have any questions, he's always willing to help and answer any questions you have. I had last-minute questions for him today, and he got back to me in like 10 minutes, and easy to reach on the phone as well.
And the meeting on the 12th is with the county commissioners?
The meeting on the 12th, it's with Miami County, what is it called?
Engineers office.
It's at the engineer's office, but it's Miami County Council meeting. I didn't know Miami County had a council, but
Yeah.
that's what it's called
They do.
on here.
Is it the county trustees?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
They're not the
hearing,
commissioners.
No. And it's not the council like is in other states, because that's the financial arm of the county, so no.
yeah, the hearing
I think
tomorrow is likely with the commissioners.
Yes.
And Dan will be there, and what he will do is he'll read along like a script of things he has to talk about at the hearing tomorrow, and go over all those and answer any questions and those sorts of things. And it will include likely that information about the home improvements and things like that. I'm not well versed on that, sorry.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
Quick plug for CDBG projects. Because the village is eligible for CDBG funding for quite some time, you should be looking at future projects next year, year after that, year after that. Not only for the NRG program, but there's also other programs called critical infrastructure, RPIG, that's more focused on sanitary sewer or water line or something like that. There's $500,000 free money there. for those programs. So we'll be coming back. That's
Yeah.
my point with other projects in the future.
Well, the earlier you can hit us
Several
with
years, yeah.
information so that we can
Yep.
come up to speed on the great stuff you're passing on, that would be awesome.
Sure. Any other questions for me?
No, we
Randy?
haven't had that many people at the podium this year, but so far you're leading. You're number one. Not that it's a contest or we've ever given an award, but right now you're winning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Next on the agenda is the Haskett Road, Hamilton Street traffic study.
As you recall, earlier, we asked a couple of engineering firms for proposals, and we got proposals from Choice One and from LJB. They were very different in focus, and so the council asked for a third proposal, and we solicited that from Broomball Engineering. At that point, staff, Mr. Herron, asked if he could submit his suggested improvements for this area before the council made any decisions on hiring an outside engineering firm. So tonight, Mr. Herron is going to share his suggestions.
So basically, this is part one of two projects. Milton Potsdam is one area, and I know we're working with Choice One on some Milton Potsdam 571 or Hay Street improvements. This one is more geared towards the central part of the travel area between the school and the inner neighborhoods rather than 571. So I felt the best thing to do would be to look at the target areas, which would be West Hamilton Street between Jay and Haskett, Haskett Road between Hamilton and Milton Potsdam, and the Haskett Connector, which is the small connection that goes off of Haskett Road. That is by far the most congested area. It's kind of hard to see here, but before you get to J Street, when traffic comes in, everybody's coming from different directions, but they all funnel onto Hamilton Street from the J Street area, whether they're coming from the north, the east, or the west. And then they also funnel on from Haskett, whether that be the connector or Milton Potsdam. So that's pretty much isolated that area as to where we're having the most traffic congestion and issues. So basically, if you look at Hamilton Street off of J, this street's it's a 33 feet wide street, curved both sides. The passer rating, which is pavement surface evaluation rating, is a 10. This picture actually is an old photo, but it's now totally resurfaced last year. And this stretch averages around 1,250 vehicles per day on school days, which that number drops after you get on to J in different directions. Obviously, heavy traffic flows in the morning and afternoon for school, and also on the weekends due to the activities at Lowry Field. The biggest problems we have are vehicles weaving in and out of the main drive lanes due to the parked cars, and vehicles failing to yield coming from opposite directions. So we've got two coming at each other at the same time, causing kind of erratic driving. And at the same time, obviously, we have kids walking to school. So when we had the Hayes Street project going on, we posted no parking on the north side. There were about 5 residents that really seemed to affect, that we kind of had problems with wanting to still park there. But by doing so, we're basically adding about 6 feet to the travel lanes, and that will eliminate like vehicle weaving and slowdowns, and it gives you 2 travel lanes that are wide enough for 2 buses to pass on that roadway. So the upside is it's always going to be clear on the north side. The traffic flows are going to be better. The downside is the people on the north side are going to lose parking on Hamilton Street. I know they do have, a lot of them have garages and stuff behind the houses.
There's an alley behind the majority of Hamilton Street, correct?
Yeah, there's an alley back there. And I know it's more convenient to park on Hamilton and go in your front probably than park in the back and walk up to your back door maybe. But as Manager Sheridan and I discussed this morning, it's kind of a happy medium because there still would be parking on the south side. You could eliminate parking on both sides and make it wide open, completely adding about 12 to 13 feet. But in this case, you're still allowing some on-street parking, but you're giving 2 clear lanes of traffic at all times.
I can tell you that the proposed transportation plan that Collabo is working on, that chapter now, proposes that that street be a bicycle, have a bicycle lane on Hamilton Street and be the main north-south bicycle route for between the school and the downtown. So that would also play into limiting the parking. Because you would probably put it along the north curb. About a 4 foot, I think, is a travel lane for a bicycle lane.
It makes sense though, just to have like Hamilton Street going west, a one-way, and then the next street over, can't remember what the name of it is, I'm gonna say Forest. Have it be the opposite direction. And then you could still have parking on both sides, but...
I looked at that. If you look at pavement widths, Hamilton Street was like a main street in town back in the original days. Forest's not nearly as wide, so...
I bet Hamilton's 8 feet wider, maybe 6 at least.
Yeah, 6 to 8. So I mean, I guess your goal is to try and keep them out of, I would consider those areas even more neighborhood, just because the street's more narrow and the homes are a little closer together. I mean, anything's worth looking at. But artery-wise, I mean, if you live 2 houses down from J Street, does that mean that you have to go all the way up Hamilton around to get to J? You know what I'm saying? So I try to look at really all the aspects of even one-way streets, but and again, this is just a suggestion. So
Yeah.
So when you called it an artery, it's it's a thoroughfare.
Yeah.
This is one of the more,
We call Hamilton a primary.
okay.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, all the dodging and weaving, the brakes, the sliding over, there's a dance to it, and respectful people kind of, oh, I got more room, I'll let this guy keep coming, you know. But then you get people in a hurry or a rush, or that maybe just don't have the same respect, and it gets, you end up with a nail biter where you're passing between a parked car and it, you know.
I know, Ben, that it says between Jay and Haskett, but would we consider it east on Hamilton if this was like the bike path from downtown to the school and make the whole Hamilton no parking on?
Yeah,
that
I mean,
side?
if we got to the bike path portion, there's other things you can do, like this area, the sidewalk, that right-of-way area, you could potentially look at taking away some of that, or the easiest, obviously, the easiest solution and most cost-effective would be to make no parking both sides. The bike lanes, I think, are 4 foot. Does that sound right, Andy?
Yeah.
Five.
Maybe 5 now.
Up 5 feet. So the 6 foot you're gaining for traffic, obviously in a bike lane, you're losing 5 of that. So I would say at that point, we would have to sit back down, decide what we were going to do if that.
South side of Hamilton, is there any alley behind it? A small portion of it?
No.
Nothing. So they either count on their driveway or street park.
Yes.
Do most of the houses on Hamilton have driveways?
What's that?
Like, do most of the houses on Hamilton have driveways?
Yeah,
Like-
the majority do.
Yeah,
Okay.
single lane. I don't, not too
Yeah,
many
just
of them are-
single car mostly.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I can only think of a few off the top of my head that are 2-car wide. A lot of them are single that go to a rear garage on some of them.
Yeah.
The alley only goes up to Poplar also.
Right, right. Well, and then once you go past Poplar, isn't some of the north side of Hamilton out of town, or it used to be, or it still is?
That we have like that last.
We don't have a
house on-
sidewalk on the
Right.
right-hand
Yeah.
side. It narrows down to the bottleneck right before the turn.
Yeah, that last property.
Yeah, yeah. And that creates part of the congestion with the stuff too.
And obviously, up in that narrow section, it would have to be no parking. I mean, nobody seems to park on
Yeah,
the
lots
north
of
side
them.
up there anyway.
The last
But-
house on the right, I think again, they're out of the village, but I think they have significant barn and stuff back there.
Yeah.
I think they tend to be off the main drag.
Right. So basically, that's Hamilton. Then moving on to Haskett Road. So I've kind of identified the very first block here would be Hamilton to Forest. That is obviously north-south, and the width kind of varies on all of Haskett Road. Haskett's pretty much partial curb, berm. There's about 1,260 vehicles per day on Haskett, and it only gets about a 2 to 4 on the passer scale. The reason that varies is because some of that was paved at different times. So really, the goal on Haskett would be to initiate better and safer traffic flows during the same time periods. While I think it's really important to think about the west side, trying to maintain the trees and the grass and the greenery, try to leave that undisturbed, mainly because beside that we have a recreational area. And there's some really nice trees through there. It always seems to get maintained really nice. And, you know, coming into Lowry, go past that, it's always looked real nice. So the first block between Hamilton and Forest, not that I don't ever recall anybody ever parking on this street, ever. But I mean, we would just have to maintain that there would be no parking on that very first block. And like I said, that's never really been a problem. Then you get down to Haskett between Forest Avenue and Park, and where the red section is marked, that would be marked no parking. And that would give you pretty much what you need as far as travel lanes on both sides there. Not to mention, we have a crosswalk there that we seem to have problems with people parking right ahead of it or right behind it. And if you look to the left, you can see that all those people, none of them front Haskett. So there's really no reason you would have to park on Haskett, because those houses have driveways and or on-street parking on Park Avenue and on Forest Avenue. So there's no reason to park there. It seems like there's an overflow car there. You know, every generation somebody just parks their extra car there.
Sure.
But it's that one car that makes it difficult to get through there. So make this would be no parking anytime, obviously northbound and southbound. And again, we don't have real problems with people parking on the west side, but we would just have to make sure that that was enforced to keep the traffic flowing through what I'm calling like section number 2 on Haskett. Then moving on to the third section, that would be Haskett between Park Avenue and Lyle, and then going up to Milton Potsdam Road. So the current pavement width is around 25 feet. The target for some additional pavement width would be about 8.5 feet, and that would be between Park and Lyle. The additional footage after the project completion, you'd have 33.5 feet from curb to berm on the west side of the road. And then the travel area between Lyle and Milton Potsdam would actually be widened from 18 to 25 feet. So that kind of narrow choke section that's at the very end between Lyle and Milton Potsdam, I don't know if you guys use that much, but it's an awful turn. If you have anything other than a regular sized car, it's a difficult turn, and you, by the time they're coming off of Milton Potsdam or the Haskett connector to go the other way, it's extremely narrow through there. And when you get to that intersection, it's kind of on an angle, so it's hard to see. So this is kind of twofold. One would be increasing the traffic between those blocks, and the second thing would be making that Milton Potsdam intersection a lot safer. So, because I feel that a lot more people would use that, and they would kind of stay off maybe the connector, or they might come down instead of going through downtown if that was a safer intersection, which would alleviate some traffic issues we talked about maybe on Forest or Park.
Can you make that the little narrow connector as you're going towards 571? Can we make that one way from there forward?
Well, I will give you my answer here in a second.
I'm sorry.
So, if you look at the paper here, basically we'd be removing this entire right-of-way, which would be the existing curb, the green space, and the sidewalk. The sidewalk's not in prime condition anyway. And again, this takes us from about 25 foot of pavement to 33.5 feet. And this basically will allow for the free flow of small to large vehicles, while still giving the people down through that have like one single car driveway parking, which out of all the places we've talked about that needed parking, this would be probably the block that would need it the most. I don't know why the computer just kind of went. Anyway, so this would be an example of what we would put in place of the sidewalk. This is monolithic or combination curb and sidewalk. Obviously, the curb rides right along the edge of the sidewalk, and then you've got your walking portion of the sidewalk. That would be what we would run from that stretch from Lyle all the way to Milton Potsdam Road. And then I thought the construction would be a lot more detailed till I really started looking at this, but there's one light pole. This is at Park Avenue on the northeast corner of Park and Haskett. We could move that pole over to Park and mainly try to angle it towards that intersection and possibly increase the lumens on that LED light just to make it a little bit brighter right there. So then that's got an overhead line, so there wouldn't be any underground work right there. Remove this existing fire hydrant basically NFPA recommends 500 feet apart. Fire department engines typically carry 1,000 plus, sometimes 2. David, am I right? I mean, so 1250. And if you look on the right-hand side, the distance from the hydrant to the north is 328 feet, and the distance from the hydrant on the south is 387. So we're still well within our hydrant distances. This hydrant's actually a 1960s era hydrant. It needed replaced anyway. The plan would be just to eliminate this hydrant and cap it below the ground. This is the one tree that we would lose in this project. As you can kind of see, the sidewalk behind it is heaved up and the road in front of it's heaved up. It's mainly overgrown for the spot where it's at. It's obviously we would not be able to work around this tree, and that's one of the reasons why we've got some issues through there that we have now. So that tree would be removed along with the stump.
Hey, sorry, quick question.
Yeah.
The widening of, or removing that green space part, so basically would it take it to where the existing sidewalk is now, approximately?
It would take it to the back edge of where so the back edge of the new sidewalk would be where the back edge of the old sidewalk is now.
And it'd be that mono that he showed with the curb.
All the way from there to Lyle?
Yes. From Park Avenue past Lyle to Milton Potsdam.
Oh,
all the way down.
Mm-hmm. Oh, gotcha.
So the yard space from the sidewalk to the house would remain the same?
Yes. Yes. So basically, you're taking away their green space, but you're giving them a safe place to park while widening our travel lanes.
And the village is not going to require additional right-of-way, that's all within the existing right-of-way.
Correct.
And it would still, so you're saying they would still park on the street?
There would still be room because of the widening. There'd still be room because basically we'd be increasing that to 33.5 feet. So they would still be able to, in this case, they would be able to park and we wouldn't have any issue because of the extended street.
Because the car would pretty much be over right next to where the sidewalk is.
Yeah, Ben's car would be where the X's are.
Which is what's been happening anyway, and people can drive through perfectly. They park in the garage.
Well, no, they try to be respectful and pull up in the curb lawn.
Yeah.
Right, which, I mean, that's nice that they do that, but
Yeah.
so it's an example that it's worked.
Right.
Would that,
Yes.
so for the cost for that, would that be on the homeowner or would that be us?
We would, this would be a city project, so we
Okay.
would basically be,
Do you remember when they widened 48 through Union and all those doubles along the right there as you first go into Union? And they basically took everyone's driveway away. And I'm going to guess the village, you know how they all go in and they have little driveways off to the side now?
yeah.
With people having limited parking, I don't know if, I can't imagine that they put that on the homeowner because it was uniformly done.
Yeah, that was a city project. I remember talking to,
Is, for the few houses that are in there that are gonna, if we did make it no parking, the whole thing, is that something that could be part of some kind of project or something that just makes it a little easier for the homeowner?
for what? What was the question exactly?
How they did that little parking
like
off to the side, because some of those people lost the, driveway space.
Yeah, you'd have to look at the space they have, only because I think they had a little more room on those duplexes in Union versus what they have out there.
But you said they wouldn't be losing anything from where their sidewalk is now, so they'll have exactly the same amount of driveway
Right.
as they
Okay.
did before.
Yeah, they're not, the only thing they're losing is the green space.
Right.
So let's see, we would be looking at, obviously that tree. We would have, so we got Frontier down there and then we have some, cable, down there too. We would basically have to, get the underground or relocate to the west side of the road. So the very first pole there would have to be relocated. And the existing street light, I'm assuming that pole could actually just cross the road and that way we can still keep a street light there. And I would definitely be in favor of looking at that light head and making that a little bit higher lumens, because that's going to be lighting up the Haskett connector area right there. So that pole would have to be moved. And then this mainly is the open back catch basin here. Mainly that's just a matter of extending the pipe and moving the catch basin back and making it just like a set of a curb inlet open, just a graded catch basin right in the curb line. So that's fairly inexpensive to do, is put a new casting with a bicycle safe lid so bikes don't wreck
All
on it.
those were murderous if you hit one.
Yeah.
Over your handlebars you went. It's a childhood trauma right there.
Sanitary sewer, mainly sanitary would just have to be brought to grade. So in other words, a casting this tall, we'd just replace it with a small casting. And all the utilities are deep enough for the project where we don't have to touch them, which is a pretty big deal. Then actually the last one was storm. This is sanitary. So you can see it's in poor shape anyway, and that would actually be, where that's at now would actually be pavement. So that would obviously get dug up and have a new casting and lid put on it, and that would look a lot nicer. That would be set to the final street grade. Then once we get to the connector, I threw that in instead of going to Milton Potsdam, because we're kind of moving our way to Milton Potsdam right now. But that's an east-west. It's about 19 feet wide. It's berm edge. Estimated vehicle per day was a little over 500, and the street overall would get a passenger rating of 5. The congestion there is really bad. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys, when you get down to the garage or whatever that's on the left-hand side when you're trying to look left, our right-of-way line actually, Andy sent it to me originally, and I was surprised to see that our right-of-way actually goes pretty close to that building. So what you'd mainly be doing is eliminating the sight distance problem, and cars pull up to there that are heading eastbound, and they stop. They can't see to the left.
Right.
They can't pull out because there's a car coming from the right that's half in their lane. So I've noticed on several occasions there's about 3 to 4 cars all sitting right there, and they don't move fast. And I've tried to pick different times throughout the day to check it out, and that's one of the worst. Besides the Milton Potsdam intersection, that's the worst spot we have down there. So you can eliminate that by just mainly going one way westbound. That way you don't have the sight distance problem. You don't have three-way traffic trying to go right, left, and straight with sight distance issues. And short of taking that building down, that's really the only good solution that I could find right there. And by the way, I just want to let you guys know, I did call Union Township and invite them to come tonight, because I told them the last thing that we wanted was for them to think that we're talking about making changes on their areas that we didn't talk to them about. And I just made sure they knew that this was strictly a presentation to council tonight to think about this idea or maybe some other ideas, but that they were more than welcome to come. But we just wanted to make sure to keep them posted on what we were talking about. So, any questions on that portion? And then lastly, we have Milton Potsdam. So right now we're at 18 feet in here, and that 18 feet turning off of a unaligned street like that is a very difficult thing to do, especially if you're in a school bus, a trash truck, a snowplow, anything like that. A small car doesn't have a problem, but that's about it. So we'd be going from 18 feet to 25 feet wider curb radius. And if you look on the left-hand side where the blue is, that'd be a wider asphalt berm to make your turns. And on the right side, that monolithic curb combination that we talked about would take you to the right. It would give you much more room to make that turn versus going straight to the stop bar and then having to crank it left to stay out of the oncoming drive lane. And then we would basically, that pole would have to be relocated. All that brush to the right would have to be removed, and the stop sign and the street sign would have to be relocated. So I mean, that really cleans up that intersection, and we've kind of needed to do that for a long time, and I think that ties in perfectly with what we're already talking about at Milton Potsdam and Hayes Street, and now factoring that in with our travels to school. I think it just makes total sense to look at that right now. So any questions on that? I'm trying to go as fast as I can because I know you guys don't want to be here. So at the very end, mill the curb at the end of the project, mill the curbs, new asphalt overlay. I think a double yellow going all the way between Hamilton and Milton Potsdam, and using that double yellow to slowly take them for any pavement changes. Like if we're off center and we're trying to move them over, we can use pavement markings to move them over a couple feet. And then obviously replace the existing crosswalk with new thermal. And again, I know this would be a joint project with the township. I did an in-house estimate. I know Andy's here. I was going to have him kind of double check my numbers, but I kind of stole some of his old numbers off other things. When we're talking about the no parking signs, the posts, the tree, curb gutter, everything, we were at 263,200. I know we would have, I did include surveying and staking, but we would have engineering fees in there that I do not have on here. And if we did want to go ahead and do an edge mill and a pave on that, to add around 20,500 to that number. So I would just say 265 to 290 with paving plus some engineering, which I don't think is too bad. I thought it was going to be higher.
Outside of the state route, is there any place in town where we have more traffic around a more delicate population than what we do
No.
right there? I mean,
No, and I mean, that's what we want to do, is keep them
Not even
on
close.
these designated routes, keep them on the primaries. Hamilton, like, when we go out to salt and plow, Hamilton's a primary, Haskett's a primary. Some of the side streets that they're trying to use aren't, and we haven't gotten to them yet, so we've got some minor accidents going on the side streets, so we're trying to entice them to use these routes to go to school. And it's going to save us a lot of problems, so.
The other issue you have is when even school's not in session, the park's heavily used with sports.
yeah,
So you have
yeah.
a lot of traffic coming to and from sports.
Yep, even outside of school.
Right. So there's probably no other place in town that congested at given times.
Wouldn't this be a perfect project to submit for the community block grant that was just talked about?
When you stay past your meeting point,
Yeah,
you get drug into this, Andy, and we appreciate it.
It depends on cost. You know, you need 4 projects totaling $750,000.
Oh, we'll come up with other ones, but I mean,
Sure. But if this one costs $500,000 by the time you're all said and done,
yeah.
then you don't have room for your other ones. So you gotta.
Sounds like Ben's doing this one on a budget.
Yeah.
So for the grant, there has to be 4 projects.
4 different activities. I thought it was 3, but in Dan's letter here, it specifically says 4, so.
Oh, I thought you meant you kind of ranked the 4, but
No.
it has to be
It has to be
on
4 different, so a
different-
parks project, a water project, it has to be, you have to have 4 different separate.
So you're spreading the money around.
Exactly, exactly.
So it's for the whole community. Okay, I got you.
Whether this ends up in a community block grant or not, it sounds extremely important and sounds like it would be of great benefit to our community, to an area that's been frustrating for many, many years. And not that too many people watch this. Anybody that's not already going out, Jay and Emmerich to Davis and coming into school that way, you're missing out, because that right-hand turn into the school is where it's at versus fighting the other way. It's the same distance, and anyway, just,
Yeah, thank you, Ben. That, I
Yep.
think, is exciting.
The great part with this is that it's a benefit to the residents there that live there.
Absolutely.
oh, I think so too, yeah.
That's the great part. It doesn't really take away from them.
That first section where you turn off Hamilton onto it, you know, that's township to the right.
Yes.
I mean, we would be widening that too, right? And so that would be going on the township side into that gentleman's yard there?
I would think it's going to be very important to get the township on board.
Sure.
That's all brush down through there.
Yeah, he's got space. I mean,
Yeah.
not to tell someone else what to do with their property, but.
Right.
That's all,
You know.
like that whole widening doesn't go into any additional property. It literally is keeping the right of way the same.
He's got a fence back
Just-
behind that brush, but it's a fair bit off the road, if I remember
Yeah.
right. It's
See,
not-
it wouldn't change. We
Right.
would still be in that same spot. It's
It's
just the
kind of a
brush
green
would
wall
have
through there
to.
anyway with honeysuckle.
Yeah.
You know. So,
I think the township participation will complicate the CDBG.
If you wanted to use it there.
You mean their financial, but they could cooperate in the project, not pay financially in part of the project.
Ownership may matter, ownership of the right-of-way.
Because it's not solely within the corporation.
It's not within the CDBG place anymore. And I could be wrong. but-
Okay.
Maybe this is an exception too, because there's an island in the middle that he's
Okay.
annexed.
Good questions, we need to know.
Yeah.
But
Or if like the project started at, what is it, Poplar or whatever, and
Yeah,
went
the other one was
north,
Yeah.
separate.
and so it excluded that township part. And then the village paid, you know, that wasn't part of the
Yeah.
project we're submitting.
That's a possibility.
Well, either way, I like it, Ben. It's
Yeah.
all of it. I think we need to move forward exploring what the option or the next steps are to those things.
absolutely.
Thank you for doing all that.
Yep, no problem.
I have Dan Sirdek's information, I don't know, you want to, here's this information and the.
Thank you.
Can you scan that in and send it to us, Ben?
I'm leaving before they ask me any more questions.
Look at it.
I'm just following Kay.
Thank you.
Yeah, right now he's going, she's my ride, I'm sorry.
If you have questions, call us.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you guys.
He just doesn't want to hear about sludge.
Get the council.
Oh, yeah.
All right, next on the agenda is the sludge hauling bid.
That's also Mr. Herron.
So ironically, we have a different hauler this year than we've had for many years. A company, we had two sledge hauling bids. Polecat LLC, which has an office in Piqua, actually had the low bid. Mike Sanitation, if you recall, that's the company we typically resolve for the paving, or not paving, sorry, sludge. So the bids came in, and Polecat was at 18 cents per gallon from basically April of this year through March of '28. It never raised. It stayed at 18 cents per gallon, which at our 250 to 450,000 gallon average, that's about $72,000 a year. Mike Sanitation was actually at 0.1995 or 0.20, then at 0.22, and then at 0.23 or 24 through the third year. So this is a 3-year bid. This is basically a 3-year bid. So the savings in that time period would be as low as $46,000, but depending on how much we haul, it could be as high as $65,000 to $70,000 in that time period. And in a time when we're trying to think about replacing our plant and things like that, it's a pretty big savings. It's hard because Mike's does such a good job, and they've been hauling for us for so long, but all their references checked out really well, and keeping their price the same for that whole period is pretty good. So,
The bidding process, you can't go back and give the other guy a shot at matching, can you?
no.
Yeah.
Can we, Lene? No, I'm just kidding.
We looked into what our options might be.
That's all I had on that.
So that's the resolution that will be at your next council meeting for your adoption. And I think next in your packet, and correct me if I'm wrong because it's not on the agenda, is a proposed demolition permit. Right now, the village does not require a demolition permit. I suggest that we should. Most communities do. So you have a proposed application, and then the resolution, or the ordinance, I should say, to put that into place would also be at the next council meeting, unless you direct me otherwise. Does anyone disagree that the village should be notified when a building is demolished inside the village?
I absolutely think we should, and with all of our stuff being old and probably asbestos being in old buildings, and I think it's only prudent that we have this step in the process.
So that will be,
Personally.
take a look at that. If you have any questions or changes, let us know, but there will be an ordinance, and correctly, will be an ordinance to put that into place. It'll take a couple of readings, but the first reading would be at your next council meeting, and so take a look at that.
Is there going to be a fee for?
There would be, I'm not sure.
40 is at the bottom of this one, that's still already on there.
Yeah, I would expect it to be somewhere between $50 or $100, or something tied to the size or value of the building. You know, depending on how big of a deal it is and what other village services might be required, blocking streets and so forth to accommodate it.
Can we, I don't know if it's included on here, I haven't read that fast, but can we make sure that we get a copy of the contractor's insurance?
Yes.
Perfect,
Yes.
thank you.
I mean, for example, the demolition that's going to take place, Trolley Barn, I've got a copy of their insurance and their EPA permit. So, and the contractor's been cooperating with this and said he would let me know when they're actually going to be in to finish. And they are taking down both buildings, as I understand it.
Oh, well.
Any other questions on the proposed demolition permit?
Like it.
I like it too. Do we also, are we going to require, I haven't read it, but are we going to require like notification, and I don't know the word in Ohio, I can't think of it, but like where you have to call the number and they come out and locate
811?
that?
You would obviously do it.
Call for it.
You would
Yeah.
obviously
like-
do a locate of any utilities before you'd allow the building to be demolished and have those disconnected.
I think it's on there.
Okay, perfect.
Cable, electric, septic,
Okay.
telephone line.
Cool, thank you.
All right. Moving right along, if I may, Mayor, there is a resolution that deals with the sanitary sewer trunk line project that would be on your agenda for the next meeting. As you recall, one of our bigger infrastructure projects this next year is replacing the sanitary sewer trunk line at the south end of town. This is authorizing the engineering, which we're responsible for. So the resolution is in your packet. Take a look at it. If you have any concerns, let me know, but basically it's just authorizing us to go ahead and get Choice One designing it at a cost not to exceed $79,000. Any questions? Following me is another resolution that has to do with engineering on the pedestrian path. In this one, ODOT is combining the first grant and then the funding for the lighting into one project. And so that changes some of the numbers. We're still responsible for the engineering. In this case, it's $307,000 between the lighting and the path itself. So we're getting authorization to make that change. We were paying for it before, but in two different projects. Now it's one project. Does that make sense?
So it's just one lump sum versus
One
two.
lump sum, correct. The next issue is the 2025 paving bid. Mr. Herron?
Yeah, I had a nice program to give you guys on that tonight, and the computer went dead. But I was just going to ask if Megan would include that in your packets. I just felt it was important to kind of tell you guys what all goes into choosing the streets for paving. It's not just like the street condition, it also has to do with if Ritter's going to be in town tearing up the street in a year or two and all of that. But I'll definitely pass that on to you. But the paving bids came in and we are underbid. Basically, I wish I had that because all my information was on that. But
That was on my computer,
well, I
and
had it on that thumb drive, and then all of a sudden it just went off.
I didn't understand why you wanted the plug.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
So paving bids, I can just kind of tell you guys. So we were at 88,772. So we had around 225 or 230 total, taking out the Hay Street paving with ODOT. And with the 88,772, on that amount, you can also take off about 21,500 because 21,500 of that is for the downtown parking lot, which the downtown parking lot would be milling, resurfacing, remarking, adding some security lighting and electric, which are all projects that we have going on right now, hopefully to be done as soon as possible. The streets that we're looking at this year are West Water Street between Walnut and Market. So that's back behind off of Stillwater Street. It's about 22 years old and it's rated at about a 3 out of 10. Walnut that's beside it is 20-year-old pavement rated at 4, and we need to do Walnut at the same time because those two combine to a catch basin that needs better drainage right there at the corner. Washington Street, which would be from East Tip Pike all the way to Front Street. It's 21 years old and it's rated at a 4. I know you guys drive back there all the time. It's really bad. And there's kind of a theme to this. We're trying to tie in these areas with, one, keeping them close, but two, these are areas that we have a lot of functions in. So we want to show people that we're, trying to take care of our.
On that note, as we're redoing any of this paving, have we put any thought into adding like electrical outlets or anything that we can literally stop all the generator madness, let people plug in and they just pay a $10 fee to have electric access in through the city parking lot there?
Yeah, that's part of the plan.
Maybe along Washington Street, because taking out all that generator noise and pollution and literally just charging a small fee for them to plug into.
That's what we've been working towards. Mr.
Yeah.
Herons had that idea. And
I think that would be
when
awesome.
Sarver's putting up a brick wall back there, and when he does, he's getting extra brick, and we're making a meter pedestal with it to go at the corner of Hamilton and Washington, and then on all three sides of that wall, we're going to have 220 and 110 to go to the parking lot, to Washington, towards horses, that area. So we'll have power all the way around. So yeah, that's in progress. Well, it's not in progress till the brick arrives, but yeah.
Can those be locked?
That was my next question. You don't want to have everybody over there
No,
charging their Prius
Like,
off of
I
it,
just know what teenagers do,
They'll be
right?
locked.
Like, their phone's dead, let's plug it in, and like, that's fine, but like, that can add up.
They'll be
Yeah,
locked.
they'll have covers and locks. I mean, they don't look bad. They'll just be like brown or something to kind of match the brick with locks. And when you do functions, you get a key, and then. But the theme to that is Washington Street, and then East Hamilton Street between Main and Washington is not on the paving bid, but I wanted to add that because we are still under budget by around 80-some thousand. I think even with that, adding in that $6,500 cost, I meant to put it in. That was my fault. It was an omission. So I've already talked to them about that. And then Poplar Avenue between Park and Lyle, it's about 30 years old. It's where the trench drain is at. We'd like to remove that trench drain this year, put basins on each side of the road, kind of regrade that because there's a low spot right there, and have everything drain into the curb versus in the middle of the road. the trench drains upkeep, it keeps filling up with debris. It fills up the pipe that goes to Hay Street. It's a big problem, so we would like to get rid of that. So we would do that prior to paving. So then, of course, like I said, those are the streets in the downtown lot. Still, like I said, 80-some thousand, I think, under budget. The last thing that I wanted to bring up, so I didn't forget, is the public parking lot. I did get a quote from them to do that, so if we're interested, they would do that while we're here. But in short, the paving bids came in, and Wagner Paving was actually at $113,120, and Fillmore Construction out of Leesburg, Ohio, was at $88,772. Pretty big difference. Wagner's done spectacular work for us in the past. They're a great vendor, and it's nice to have them in Union Township. But I talked to Lene and Manager Sheridan, and I mean, we really don't have a choice. We can't just say, we really like you guys. I mean, I thought about it long and hard what we could do. There's really not much we can do, and
Did you check their references? I know we
Yeah.
talked about that. Okay.
yeah, they're
They were good.
top notch.
So, question on being under budget. Is the thought to save for bigger projects next year? Because, I mean,
You read his mind.
okay, good. Good.
Yes, for sure.
I was gonna say, because it seemed to me like, you know, we bring in around $200,000 on the street levy every year, give or take. And it almost seemed like in years past, that was enough, not enough to keep up with. And so spending less this year, I just make sure we don't fall behind on,
No.
because it almost seems like we need to spend a little more even than what's brought
Right.
in.
You might not be saying that when 26 budget comes around, and
Why not? Why not?
no, but it is. You're 100% correct. J Street's a good addition, or a good example. J Street's about 2 years behind, but we knew they were going to be replacing all the bare steel up there, so we just kind of let it sit. But it really needs done from Edgar to. It'd be nice to go to Wright Road, to be honest with you. It'd be nice to go to J, but to Wright.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, things like that.
So we should expect to see more paving budget next year.
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'll send you the information that I wanted to show you. Thank
I don't
you.
know if this is a thing, but when paving's happening, do any of the residents get a notice that if they want to expand their driveway, per se, you know, like on Haskett, like, that the companies would work with them as a side job? Is that a thing?
Yeah.
You know, like, while they're there and doing it, like, yes, we would pave
We
your
don't
driveway.
promote it, but a lot of the
Right.
residents do contact the paving agency and work something out.
They do. Just with, like you said, improving the downtown or, you know, along Washington, like, I don't know, just making places kind of come up to our code enforcement and looking nice, and with the curbs that were done on Hamilton and stuff, just, I don't know. In our sidewalk incentive program, if it all tied in together somehow, that people might be willing to do more.
Should I continue?
Yep.
We're at the halfway point according to the agenda. The Hamilton Street private parking lot, your next handout is a copy of the appropriate ordinance, and there are two modifications. On the second page, the one that's highlighted, and the third page, and the difference is one's residential, one's commercial. The short explanation is that if you added this language to the ordinance, the village would have the authority to have the private parking lot paved and assess each of the private property owners for their portion of that parking lot, or any parking lot in the village, private or residential, would fall under the same
I don't think we have what you're
regulations.
talking
You
about.
talking about this one that says Community Improvement Corporation?
No, do you not have one that
looks
says
like
maintenance of exterior premises?
Yeah, I do.
Yes, it's just out of order.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
98.08, maintenance of exterior premises. I'm glad you said something, yeah. So, I'll say again, on the second page, item 7 that's highlighted, and on the third page, it's number 6. and the difference is one's residential, one's commercial. If you're so interested, we can have an ordinance prepared for the next meeting for your consideration to add that to our code. Questions, comments? Is this something you want to move forward on or consider?
Is it the word parking lot that's being added? Or is it that whole, like where it says the 7 and?
It's the whole section, isn't it, Lene?
It is, I'm trying to remember now that I had it.
Looks like it's adding piece 7 and
I
piece
don't
6.
remember if it was the whole section or not. I want to say it's the whole section, since it's at the end.
Okay.
But I looked through it so many times, I wouldn't be able to tell you if it said it before. But yes, the main thing is the parking lot.
So,
Okay, and this is for commercial, this.
And
part right
residential.
here.
They're
And
both,
residential.
They're
two
both in there.
separate.
Okay.
so I was back there over the weekend, and so many people have put signs in now saying this is this parking lot. And I was showing my wife where the property lines actually show, and it's just crazy. It's crazy how, I don't know how you, even if you do this and pave it, if one person decides to not play well in the parking lot, so to speak, you are not going to have the confluence of parking that we have now in a generality. I mean,
They'll put their signs up.
well, my worry is they take it further than that, and no, you can't park here, or start blocking things off, or.
Yeah, but our primary concern is safety,
Right.
you know. Not that we can't facilitate other conversations, but our primary is safety. I wondered if a temporary fix or a fix at all, we own, or we have the alley, right? That goes down
Not all of it,
by the post office.
not all of
Don't we
it.
have a right of way through?
That's
Not all of it.
that's our alley, and it goes all the way through and cuts
Is it?
the parking lot in half, doesn't
Ben,
it?
is it, is the,
So, no.
Only
No.
the alley beside the post office.
Right, the alley beside the post
No.
office.
Right, but I thought we
No.
had a right of way all the way through to Washington between the buildings.
If you
no,
look at the GIS, it goes all the way to the back.
Right, but what I'm talking about is just the alley where you turn to put your mail in the box.
Right,
And
that alley,
so that's us.
and then if you head north,
So
that's
on,
ours.
on one hand, I think we can fix the problem by shutting that alley down.
oh,
Because the problem I have is now there's a public service being offered in that alley. And so you turn and you go, now you have to exit on private property. We don't control what's to the left and to the right. Okay?
okay.
And so then it becomes a problem because there's huge potholes. It's hard to turn left because that big pole's in the way and all that kind of stuff. And so if we made it a do not enter and just cut off traffic all the way in the alley, nobody loses any service because all it is the box. We may have a headache a little bit with the post office as far as relocating the box, but citizens could still park on the road and walk it out, or they could relocate their box to somewhere else. And now we have taken away our part because you're not running traffic through there. I don't know how many cars every day, but now it's just people that are going in to frequent those businesses. And that's a private, matter. I mean, not that we shouldn't think about these things, that's fine, but I just thought about that and I'm like, I think that would at least
It looks
be something to think about anyway.
like we have the right of way, what you're talking about there. It looks to me like we have that sidewalk and the right of way
Yeah, that's
all
what-
the way
that's
through to
what I thought,
Washington
too.
Street.
That's what I thought too.
I mean, we should be putting lighting across that all the way through. I mean, we should doll that up. But that's a whole separate conversation. But when you look at those parking lots, how they're divvied up.
No, I know.
Somebody could, the guy that owns this lot could just say, you guys can't drive through mine to get to theirs,
Right. Because I hear a lot of people talk about, I'm in there, I got to go there. Well, you don't have to go there. Unless you're mailing a letter and drop it off, then you do, because it's a one-way, So if we eliminated that, only the people that are frequenting those businesses, and that's their choice. And if they choose not to, then that speaks to the business owners. I don't know, just as something to
You're talking
consider.
about the alley by the post office,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Where
Just
you,
eliminating that, and then what
Yeah.
about this alley back here?
The one that runs to like North Street.
That's lavender that runs.
yeah.
Lavender Alley.
No, I was just talking about the one beside the post office where the box is.
For the next meeting, we'll have the GIS on the big screen so we can all see it. How about that?
Because
yeah.
the paving of the lot would not be, like, if you're dropping your mail into the box,
Right.
it would not be to the left, right? It's only
Correct.
To the right.
to the right.
When you look at the,
So
And
do-
Lavender Alley is ours?
Maybe that.
So like if you go down the
Where's this
post
lavender
office alley, which is ours, and turn left.
You're good.
Lavender
This alley
starts
North
right
Street.
there at the post office alley.
'Cause it goes-
to
But
High
it
Street.
doesn't go
It's up
right.
to us
So
to
behind Sour
maintain.
Mills.
We
Right,
do
right,
maintain
right.
it,
Yeah, yeah. Well, no, you have to, I mean, that would change because you,
Yeah,
if
there
you
you
look at
go.
this,
But
if
then
you've ever
those couple
walked that
parking
parking lot,
spots
or
to
that
the
sidewalk through there.
east
we have
of
all this
Lavender
parking
Alley,
here
behind what
that
was
goes
the Gleaning
unused,
Place.
that you could be driving your
Is
public
there a reason we
traffic.
wouldn't include them
Yep.
in the
And-
entire?
There's
I think
alternative
the
parking
biggest reason
access.
was it never seemed to be in as nearly as bad a shape, because I think they maintained it a lot better. So like if you look at, it was just never nearly as bad as that other section. That's probably why. But I'm not saying that's the reason. Like,
Doesn't mean it couldn't be included now.
Yeah.
So I think that is like a separate conversation too, though, than the adding this language on, right? Like this goes across all commercial properties. This isn't like we're gonna do this for
Right.
this parking lot, we're gonna do this for all commercial properties. Cause there's other areas like where the bowling alley building is, that parking lot's not in good shape. Not that people are parking there, but like,
Right.
there's other areas too.
The ordinance would give the village the authority. You would have the discretion on where you're going to enforce it. So you could have this
Sure.
in place and not do anything, should you choose. But if you had a situation you thought it was necessary for public safety or any other reason to have it fixed, you could do it and then have the private property owner pay for it.
Okay.
You choose where you would use the tool.
You know, the problem is, I think it's a bigger issue than what we see. The potholes and stuff is
Sure.
just what the undersoil being washed away. Have you ever been in when there's been a big rain? Been in like Fox, that one behind Fox's? I mean, it'll be over your ankle deep trying to go down into the storm sewer, and it's dropping down right off the buildings, and just filling it up. So I think it's a big issue back there. And
So putting paving on it's not going to solve that, obviously.
yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like you're just putting it on there to be washed away again, and it needs an engineer to really look at it and come up with a plan and stuff, because it in my opinion, but
Yeah.
I'm in IT, so I don't know anything. So.
Do you want the proposed language on the agenda for you to consider at your regular meeting, or do you want to ponder it some more?
I think we need to think about it till
Yeah.
maybe next month.
That's
I mean,
fine.
I'm fine with that on the agenda because it's just to use at our discretion, like you're saying, it's
It is.
not
Well-
for.
This doesn't have a
term-
specific
That's
building, a specific location. It's saying, like, you need to take care of your parking lots.
The term discretionary enforcement just has trouble written all over it. You're
Our
just saying,
whole code enforcement has these things probably already in it,
Except for sidewalk, except for the parking lots.
except for not. So all those things, and it's not being enforced.
You ponder it and I'll reconfer with the mayor closer to getting the agenda. How about that?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right, I'm going to very quickly just remind the council on the annexation process, how it works here, since we've had couple of parcels that you've had to deal with. And of course, the annexation for the Stillwater crossings were unique because they were PUDs. But it's actually a two-step process where a parcel becomes, it goes to the planning board and is recommended for annexation and then comes to the council for approval. But under our ordinance, all property comes in as agriculture, and then it goes back to the planning board for a recommendation on how it should be zoned, and then back to you to confirm it and have it rezoned as whatever, R1 or R2. So it's a multi-step process, both involving the planning board and you, and it's not until it's zoned that the Mylars get finalized and recorded at the county. Just thought it would be helpful. We've got a parcel we had to annex, and it took a little longer between getting a quorum at the planning board, and so it's taken several months, and it's been a frustration for the property owner to do their project. So this is the only place I've ever seen where it's a two-step process. Normally, when you annex it, you also choose the zoning. I'm not sure why we divide it here, but that's how it is for now until you choose to change it. May I continue, Mayor? Okay. The next is, there was been discussion about forming some economic development subcommittees of the council. I think that's an excellent idea. One or more of them could use the CIC. We already have a CIC that was apparently formed in the late 60s here in the village, but has not been active for quite some time. There's a bank account at Huntington that's approximately $5,000.
The village put that in.
I'm not sure where the money came
No,
from.
we added $3,000 to it, I don't know, 8 years ago, maybe closer to 10.
I know that the last recorded board of directors of the CIC did include any elected officials but Mr. Klein.
So it was, I believe it was a village action where we put $3,000
I'm not
back
saying
in
you're
it.
wrong.
It was with Mr. Klein when he was here.
My understanding, at least one councilman can be on the CIC board. Does it limit it to one,
No,
Ms. Broche?
it does not.
So the entire CIC board could be elected officials? That's probably not how it was intended.
I wouldn't recommend that. I mean,
I
typically.
wouldn't either. I wouldn't either. I guess the point is, if either one of the economic development committees, I think at least one of you should be part of the CIC, and that gives you some extra tools. So I gave a handout that kind of describes what the CIC can do, what the limitations are, what its powers are. So they're almost as much as a council, but not quite. There's a few very important pieces they can't do. So that's helpful. Let me know how you want to move forward on those different committees. I was asked to place on the agenda the ordinance that you previously considered regarding vacant buildings. So this is the last version that you considered. If you want to make some changes, or if you want this on the agenda for the next regular meeting, I'll wait for the mayor to give me some direction. If there's some modifications that anybody wants considered of that version, please just communicate those to me, and I'll work with Ms. Broche to get those incorporated. Do you want to have some conversation now on that particular piece of potential legislation?
Yes. So just my concerns, why this doesn't fit West Milton's needs. It targets struggling property owners rather than large-scale speculators, like wealthier cities where vacant building ordinance often aimed at investment firms sitting on empty properties for profit. In West Milton, many vacant properties belong to families, retirees that can't afford or do reservations or don't have buyers. This could actually accelerate property abandonment. If owners can't afford escalating fees, they may walk away from properties entirely, leaving blight worse, having trouble fixing it. This could lead to increased foreclosures, lowering overall property values and the village revenue. It doesn't address the root economic issues. Instead of heavy-handed fines, I think we need to look at incentives for redevelopment, which, oh my God, you couldn't ask for a better time for Andy and his cohort in crime there to come in and talk about some things that we're eligible for. And it kind of adequately describes a little bit of the situation our village is in. And I had more, and I'm not going to ramble on about that. I really am not, because I'm feeling so high about what she came in and said. What I did do this weekend was I went through our industrial zone, both of them. We have basically 2 vacant properties in those. I went through our entire B3 and B4 and listed every vacant building we have. There's about 25 of them. Some of them are questionably whether or not they're occupied or anything's going on in them. It didn't take long. Had a pleasant walk with my wife through town. We actually enjoyed the time. Did some reminiscing about things that aren't open anymore that used to be. But I think we have it doesn't take long to figure out what's empty, what's not. I would like to see us just move forward. I went ahead and printed off the county information thing on each of the properties listed, which has the information on the taxpayer, and, who's paying the tax, what their address is, and all that good stuff. And I think it would be, and if anybody wants to look at those, feel free, and I can also send it an email. I think we should look into sending a letter that says something to the property owners. It says, I hope this letter finds you well. As part of our ongoing efforts to support economic growth and revitalization in West Milton, we're reaching out to property owners with vacant, underutilized buildings to better understand any challenge they may have or may be facing in getting their properties leased or in use. Your property located, and insert the property address, is an important part of our business district, and we would love to explore ways the village can support your efforts to get occupied and contributing to our community. If there are specific obstacles, whether related to zoning, infrastructure, marketing, or anything else, we would be happy to discuss potential solutions or connect you with resources that might help. Additionally, if you have no immediate plans to utilize the building and are considering selling, we'd be glad to assist you in sharing information for potential buyers or development opportunities. Our goal is to ensure these spaces contribute positively to the vibrancy of our village while supporting your interests as a property owner. We'd appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about your plans and the ways the village can assist. Please feel free to contact, insert information at your convenience. We look forward to working together to support our local business investment in West Milton. Thank you for your time. I think that goes partly hand in hand with the CIC stuff you just talked about too. I really think versus being heavy-handed, a hand up or a hand out, an assistive hand versus a heavy hand should be our first step. And I just think it's something fairly easy to do, sending out some mail, getting some responses, and then if people don't respond, then the other thing I kept coming across is we just have, if people are really worried about how they look and safety and this, that, and the other, we have so many code enforcement things and tools that can really be used in ways to also meet those goals. I would gladly share the list of the addresses, and some I put on there are ones we know are coming vacant due to businesses closing. But anyway, that's my 2 cents and the approach I would like to see us utilize.
Well, to counter that though, if these people were going to do something with them, they'd currently be doing something with them. The heavy hand is more of a gentle.
We're talking
nudge in the
$30-some
right
thousand
direction.
in fines that can be built up over time.
Well, hopefully they
how
want
much
to
That's more than the
money-
value of the buildings in some cases.
It is, but how much money is being, here's my thing, if I have a building and I don't want to rent it and I don't want to pay to remodel it, there are people that are willing to do that, right? It's business, and I understand, the problem is we can work so hard on bringing businesses into town, and there's no place for them to go. So if I want to bring a business into town,
So what if we get a development out there on
Then
the?
you talk.
Oh, sorry.
and I feel like there's buildings that have been vacant. I've owned my house since 2002, and there are buildings that had never had anything in them since 2002. If rental income for 23 years is not enough of an incentive, it is not, 23 years you sat and you paid property taxes and you've let this building fall apart and you've not taken care of this building, and then all of a sudden the government has to step in and be like, here, let me talk to you about what a realtor is. If you have the income to buy a building in a commercial location and you're paying taxes on it and you don't know how to rent it, but you can call a realtor. We have to.
Some of these could very well end up abandoned, and then we're back into the boat of who's going to pay for the demolition of it.
But again, it's why would you want to abandon a building that?
Some of the deferred maintenance is so much. I don't know. Some of them, when you really look at them, some of them are probably beyond any commercial flip to it. Some of those are a whole different thing. The other thing when you look at this, so the new development out there, somebody puts in a nice expensive building and they have trouble renting out there, and we got these nice fancy things, and we're going to start finding them.
Well,
Or are we going to do our selective?
It's not that we're gonna fine you if your building is vacant and you're not working to rent it. It's, I'm gonna let this building sit, and there are buildings that have been vacant. I've
Some of
owned
them
property-
since I was in high school or older. I'm
Right,
not
so they've
disagreeing
been
with you on
vacant for
that
that
statement at all.
long. If rent is not an incentive, if selling it is not an incentive, if you're willing to pay property taxes on a building, I mean, what incentive is there? I mean, we need to have legislation then written of here's how we're going to fund this. We're going to incentivize you to rent this building. I know you haven't rented it for at least 23 years, but now we're going to help you get a realtor to find a tenant.
Who's going to want to come in and invest, though, where if they don't have it open, they've just dumped $50,000 into a building, they can't find a tenant, and now they risk being fined?
But they wouldn't though, because they're actively looking, it's like they've brought it up to code.
But after so long, you know.
Well, I mean, at the same time, and like on an economic downturn, the city manager is going to go in and start, you know,
I
pulling
think
out the
another,
gavel and, you know, putting it to people.
I think another option too would be to survey the business owners and the property owners to see also what they're like, especially the business owners, like the gentleman that did La La Sugarland.
Yeah.
He's a fresh perspective of what it is to come in and put money into a building, improve it, this, that, the other, and then end up being on the other side of it where he's struggling to have somebody else occupy it. You know, I think his insight would probably be valuable in this.
Is there like a way that we can fund, that we can pay a separate entity to do those things? Because I feel like right now, like
I don't know
as
how we would
council-
track all this because we're struggling to track
I mean, we're gonna have to, like, if we're not willing to say, hey, listen, you've had these vacant buildings for 20 plus years. And I'm not talking about the ones that have for rent signs. I'm talking about the buildings that are vacant, that are falling apart, that are falling down, that are a hazard, where people choose to break into those buildings and do unhealthy things. And who knows what they're doing, right? Like, I've worked in construction in the past. I have been into buildings that have been vacant, and good things are never to be found inside of buildings that have been vacant for 20 plus years. There's not good things happening.
we have our police chief here. How much vacant building crime do we have in the municipality?
None.
Okay.
we're
Now, flip side, you look at the 10 years that I've been on council, we've been working on a condemned building that we are nowhere really in 10 years.
So it sounds like we need some sort of vacant property.
What teeth would this do that isn't already there?
See subsection on his fines.
But you can't go in and just impose that on this guy but not that guy. That whole situational thing is going to end you up in court, and people are going to get upset. Well, why are you going after this guy, but why are you letting this guy over here? Because the guy that you are going after is immediately going to point the finger at everybody else that you're not going after. That's the way people go down when they're in trouble.
Jeff constantly says about code enforcement, and you always compare it to a speeding car, and we can't catch all of them, but we're working toward. What kind of teeth did it take to get the bus barn to be demoed? Because I'm sure it
Took a lot of time and effort on my part.
Nature took part of the building down and started the
But
process.
I don't believe
So an
the
act of God.
owners were
And ultimately a court order,
incorporated
yeah.
into it.
Court order.
Yeah.
So it took a court order.
And that's the same thing on the house on Hamilton. It took it took a lot of,
Not necessarily. That's a little different situation than
Okay.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
That one was occupied and just not cleaning up. And he took the easier route out, in reality is what occurred there.
The other residential property would be on Frederick Garland, where it
Yes.
was condemned. But had been vacant forever.
And none of
Since
those
2006.
people willingly were like, hey, we're gonna.
Yeah, well, the owner was in Florida. The owner had never been here.
I think that it's just one of those, like, and the other side of it is the top floors of some of the buildings have renters, so they're just like, I'm getting rental income, it's fine. And
So each one of these.
We're not this is not like a brand new, we're so creative, we invented this wheel. Like, this isn't a new thing. It's working in other places. That's why it exists.
Yeah, but when you look at where it's working, it's usually large blighted cities like Baltimore, Chicago, places like that. When you start researching small communities, I found like 4. And then to comparable size to Milton, the smallest one I could find where something like this was in use was about 20,000 people. So you're really talking a tip city size. Our entire village is 1.3 square miles. Our entire business zone and industrial zone is like 40 acres of the entire community. We are not talking about huge parcels and many, many buildings to deal with. The fact that some of these that I looked at, that we aren't hitting them on violations for other code enforcement things, it just is kind of surprising. You may be talking to Jeff with some of these addresses, maybe there's things in play, but I have questions, like some of the time it's a building where part of it is, half the building is residential, part of it is not. I put things on this list like Wilson's Mobile over there. That's one property listed. They have a hair salon in the house, but the garage portion is kind of empty.
Do you think they're zoned differently?
No, they're all zoned under one thing and it's all one parcel. So do you consider that in use or not in use?
If a portion of the building is in use, especially for a business, typically you look the other way on the vacant part unless it's...
So I put those on this list of 25,
if a 20,000 square foot building and there's 2,000 feet occupied and 18,000 no, that's different. But unless there's a huge difference between the portion that is occupied and not, and how long has it been occupied? Is it a business that's been there for 20 years and profitable?
Wilson is working on, they're going to sell it.
They're awesome, salt of the earth people, and Joe's had a health tragedy,
Right.
and prayers out to him. On the other side of the street, between Subway and Dollar General, there's 2 little hidden retail spaces in there that you look in the one and there's pigeon carcasses laying in there.
Yeah, and I went after that with the health department, they wouldn't do anything.
It surprised me, but they look like good retail spaces, extremely deep, big. I mean, the other thing, the other hat wearing, looking at all this stuff, in addition to this, was we have all kinds of retail space and opportunity for people. Like finding ways to reinvest or looking at other ways to revitalize many of these properties, I think is more important than the heavy-handed approach. Just my 2 cents. I appreciate y'all listening to me soapbox. Thank you. I appreciate your responses, and feel free to look at the places that are on there, because like I said, I think some of them are valuable retail spaces that could be utilized.
So let me just say 3 things that I think about it. I've been back and forth on this one as we went through it, and I've sided more towards the no. 3 things for me. One is the unoccupied being a definition being somebody that's actually using it, that's not consistent with whatever zoning or whatever is. I know there's one property in town that's actually is occupied or being used for storage and stuff like that, that's, would actually, under this, qualify as vacant, even though it is being, taxes are paid and things are kept up to some degree, that kind of thing. So I don't care for that. I also don't care for I get the understanding that there's discretion. And discretion is good as long as the people that are in the offices are good. I have no doubt that that is the case with everybody represented here tonight. The problem is, after you pass this, we're all not going to be on the council in X number of years, and new managers and new whatever, 5, 10, 30 years from now, whenever Jeff retires, that kind of thing. And so under C on the second page, the vacant building plan, which is if somebody comes and says, our building's vacant, but here's our plan, we need this, this, and this, or we're gonna do this, if the municipal manager doesn't approve that, he says it's not good enough for this, then they would go into the fine category. And I don't know, that discretion there just seems a little bit too much power, I think, in one place. I think there needs to be, instead of kind of subjective, it needs that approval, there should be some other kind of guidelines. And maybe there are, I know there are some other things here.
Oh, what about an appeal process? We had, yeah.
Right, that may help, and somebody that's participating really shouldn't be fined anyway. And then it seems like the 7-year, 32,000 maximum is, and then 32,000 for every year after seems like a lot. So those are my 3 things with it. Even if those 3 things are all gone, I don't know if I'm a yes, but it would get me closer.
May I offer at least one comment?
Sure.
The financial numbers or whatever you put in there.
Yeah.
You can have the fine be $1.
Right.
You can modify that. I think we several had different versions of numbers changed up, down, whatever during the last discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to emphasize and remind, you put in whatever numbers you want. And it's like a year there's $1, and the second year goes to 2 or whatever. The whole idea of being the longer they go without meeting any of those criteria, there's a stick. I think the idea of a carrot is great. I think, and if you want to start with a carrot, I have no problem with that. I think the village needs to take some action, whether it's coming up with some good carrots or a stick or both. Something, and your economic development committees are a good one to consider those.
Yep.
So maybe that's the start. You get some other people involved, whether it's elected officials and others, business people, and you start looking at this and seeing what they think the approach should be.
I don't know anything about land banks and some of the other tools used by slightly larger communities than us.
Okay.
But I know there's different ways of being able to take blighted properties and do different things that have government interaction, I mean community interaction.
Absolutely.
And give opportunities to people to incubate businesses and things like that in it too. So I'd just like to stay on the glass half full of it. And what you said, Chris, on the dollar amounts, and somewhere in all this paperwork, I had never go into a negotiation without a fallback position. So somewhere in the paperwork I'm passing around is my fallback position, the things that I think would be important to change, like you outlined, if something were to move forward with this. So.
I mean, I just see like a stack this big of properties. There's so much opportunity, but if I'm a business owner and I want to be a part of a growing, cool community in West Milton, I can't, because I can't rent any of those places.
So some of them, I mean,
Like, if I want to start a business, I can open it in the, I don't know the address, but the Lala Sugarland building. Those are for rent. That's it. Those are my options.
I would agree. One of the meetings we had last week between Jeff, myself, and Mr. Fogel with a couple of local realtors, for the subcommittee, I think like having one of them on board would be great.
Sure.
Because I'm sure they would love to have leads on things that they could put out there. Some of these are actually like rentable now or usable. Some of them, honestly, maybe more on the line of probably end up being abated and torn down. I hate to say it. But I think it's worth looking at every one on there. And some things surprise, like some things, Croplands. Croplands has a sign in his thing.
20 years later.
Well, I mean, there's a sign there for leasing of the space. It's all cleared out and ready to go. And then you think about the restaurant there, Pearson House. You know, I'm sure Mark will do something with the building or try to market it in some way.
But how long did Cropland sit without anybody, without a for rent sign? I mean, I lived back in West Milton for 5 years, and it's been vacant.
Up until recently, he's still been doing appointments in there by appointment. So he's still actively been running a business out of it to some aspect. But when I walk through there, I think of that big wide area, which I believe is our right of way. I mean, I think that whole thing and then across the other way could be really utilized as driving traffic from the parking on Washington Street. And also, like, that would be a great area to maybe have some seating or things like that. If you have downtown stuff, it's underutilized. But there's going to be big losses with some of the things that are going out. Mm-hmm. And then I had no idea, when did I'm going to guess they're closed. Miami Graphics.
Well, they've been closed for a long time.
How long?
Years.
Ever since I've been here.
Okay. I mean, that's on 2 lots. So when you look at that, the stack of things, anything that's owned more than 1 lot, which is several of them, or there's 2 packs of paper in there. Like Miami Graphics is on 2 lots that splits right through the building. You know, I have no idea what the family intends to do with that, but that's big space under a roof, you know.
I believe it's already been sold once.
Really?
Yeah.
But still not occupied, is it?
I think that, like, if we have a subcommittee to help, so, like, I love the subcommittees for a period of time, but I don't think that I personally don't think that having a subcommittee to help people who own buildings that have been vacant for 25 years, find businesses to go in then to rent them out, that's not a good use of my time. I'm not getting paid what a realtor would get paid. I'm taking time away from other areas where I'm involved in the community. I'm taking time away from my personal life. I just think that, and I know that, like, this is a lot more a lot more work for someone to do, right? But I think that, like, if we get things in place then eventually maybe we could add an additional staff member to manage these things. Because we as a council, I don't know about you guys, but I'm on council and all kinds of other things that I do in the community, and to add one more subcommittee, like, if we can get processes in place and legislation, we can get staff to manage this. And I think that that would be helpful too, because I think one of the reasons that we have issues, because it is a lot on Jeff and Chief's plate
And Ben.
I mean, that's a lot, that's a full-time job to manage that, to be like, hey guys, and, like, do we want to hire somebody that is enforcing code, or do we want to hire somebody that is selling real estate? Like, I think that, like, I love the idea, but are we going to hire somebody on staff to be a realtor, like, for the city, like that? Or are we going to hire somebody
I
like?
think that is marrying partnerships out there to where you make those introductions and things happen outside of us. We're certainly not going to be realtors, but you know, just the idea of sharing this information with realtors in town. Hey, have you thought about reaching out to these people? Here's their address, here's their phone numbers right here in the public records, you know. And also reaching out to these owners. Some of these are generational inherited properties. You may find that they are interested in selling. Never thought about it, know I need to do something about it. My kids don't want to deal with this. You know, all right, call Carol down there, you know.
All right, any other discussion on this?
May I make a comment? This might be a good time. I'm going to be advertising for an assistant to try to take the backlog of projects, help me get that cleared. So I'm going to be advertising for a couple of weeks or a month, and hopefully get some good resumes of some folks, 30 to 40 hours a week, One of their primary responsibilities will be code enforcement, but also several other projects that I've been working on, just not been able to wrap up or give them the attention they deserve. So hopefully, we'll make some additional progress going forward if I get somebody hired.
So
That's
then
great.
Chief and Sergeant Stevens wouldn't be handling that anymore?
They would not be primarily responsible. I'm hoping that my police department will still continue to assist the person with certain aspects of code enforcement. I think they have great value in patrolling the community every day and looking for potential issues. But I would expect this person to be maintaining the checklist and mailing out the letters and doing the follow-up and all those other aspects of the project,
Okay.
of the process.
Gotcha.
Next is the Everbridge communication platform.
I'm not sure who asked me, Chief? Okay, thank you. The chief asked me to put that on the agenda. Go right ahead, Chief.
So we've had some emails floating around about how we can enhance it a little bit. Just to give you a little history, that's what I thought I would do, is talk about, where we got to where we're at today. This is our second year in using Everbridge. We just renewed the agreement for this year for us to do Everbridge for another 12 months. We renew that every January. There's platforms that we obviously can use in there, but our whole focus and what we were thinking when we put this out was not necessarily to have a platform, but to have everybody sign on so they got all the information, not just pieces of it for who it may fit to. There's roughly close to 300 people signed up that's using Everbridge at this time. Unfortunately, and Jeff and I had a conversation about this just yesterday or last week, I believe it was, in talking a little bit about it. In reality, until we have an event that causes everybody to get their attention, a lot of people don't sign up on it. We've advertised it, we've sent it out on the water bills, when we get the new sign, we'll advertise it on the front of the sign. So, we're hoping word of mouth. Oftentimes, word of mouth helps as well because somebody got information. We have several people who are signed up on Everbridge, don't even live in West Milton. They live out of state, but they grew up here and they want to know what goes on here. So they've signed up for Everbridge because you don't have to be a resident to sign up for it, which would include anybody that's in Ludlow Falls that would actually, we're servicing with water and sewer. Those folks obviously need to sign up for it because that's places we put that out. We've been trying to use it more and more to put things out. It's not, the whole purpose of Everbridge is not necessarily a social event, but kind of emergency things or things that we feel the community needs to be. The second portion to that I think was extremely important for us as to why we wanted it. While we have tornado sirens and we test them monthly, we have on occasion had one that doesn't function, such as the one at the service barn here. Just recently it wasn't working. Ben had to have somebody come in, fix it. It's back in operation again. But Everbridge offers that as well. Now that's something that as a user, when you sign up, you determine what you want to get. Because we've had people call in here upset that they got a warning of not something they felt was extremely urgent at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, you can opt out of some of those, but one of the things that, unfortunately we live in Tornado Alley. So that, every summer we have a lot of tornadoes that seem to come through this area, not necessarily West Milton, but the whole Miami Valley. I think that's a crucial part of why we need Everbridge, to be honest with you. That's every bit as important, I think, as some of the messages that we send out. So we've lacked a little bit in sending those out because I think, it being new, we have not gotten them out as much as we should. We've been using it a lot more. You've probably got, if you're signed up on Everbridge, you've been getting a lot, especially with some of the boil advisories because of the water main break in Troy during the cold weather. So that hopefully that answers some of your questions as to what's going on with it.
So I brought this up because I was super excited when you brought it up a year or two ago and thought this is exactly what we need and something to get communication out there being the newspaper. And honestly, we say Facebook, but I don't do the municipality Facebook, so how many people are missing out? And I think it's definitely underutilized. I find it a little clunky. I got a lot of people to sign up in the beginning, and you had the 9,000 different weather alerts from
Yeah.
severe wind and slight
Right.
wind and
Right.
very windy. Like, I never knew there were so many weather alerts.
That is a downfall to it.
And it was a little clunky in the beginning. So I just didn't know, like, do we love it? Like, what else exists? How do we get people to sign up? And so I always think about, like, One Call Now. Remember when that was a thing
Yeah, yeah.
initially? Whether it was school or church or whatever, and you got, like, the one call. Can we automatically enroll people? All of our users, all of our water and sewer users are automatically enrolled. I get a phone call from AES that's like, hey, there was a power outage in your area. I don't remember signing up for alerts, but I appreciate that. Or with the school, I guess when I enrolled my kids, I probably checked a box to send me the alerts, but
Right.
I get a text message, once a week, twice a week, just about different things going on. And honestly, I think people aren't texting. Like, people are either doing push notifications or text. Like, that is the primary communication, I think, these days. And Jeff's like, could we have an Everbridge representative come and help us? Like, how do you get people on it? But I almost think it's like an automatic enrolling of our customers. Like, they deserve to know. Because honestly, that boil advisory, if I wasn't one of the 300 people, I would not. Well, we were texting, but I would not have known.
Right.
I don't have, like, local TV, so I don't have, and it's all my fault. Like, I'm not seeking out the information, but a lot of people I don't think are. They're
You don't spend
On
your
my
life on
phone.
2, 22, and 7?
I don't. I only have one bunny ear in the back room, but I don't know. And just making it the easiest way possible. People in the younger generations are just, they need it to be the easiest possible. And I hate to say that, and we have older population in town too. But if there was a system equally as Everbridge, or one that you can pay your water bill and you can get the push notifications and you can enter a code enforcement comment, or I don't know, a whole app platform. I don't know the price of those things. I don't know what would serve our community best or what other communities are using. We all get government emails and they give us a few other platforms that are out there. I don't know. I love it. I love the idea and I want it to succeed.
Right.
And if we stick with Everbridge and we start putting the QR code on or the link for people to download, and we have the QR code on the front of the water bill every week, and we have, I don't know, as much as we can, if that's the way we're going to go, or stay. I mean, we are for the next 11 months.
We got room for that QR code on the side of the trash trucks?
That's a big
I think a downfall of the Everbridge is the app. You have, when I first, I thought it was just going to be, here's my mobile number, you send me push notifications, as simple as that. And so having to involve an app or a username and password on a website, I've actually somehow completely lost my username, and so I can't even get in there anymore to change stuff because I didn't want phone calls anymore. But
I had issues in the beginning too.
But-
I know, it was a clunky,
Yeah.
like, setup.
They all have an app, no matter usually whatever service you go to, unless you're doing the one call thing. Now, I don't know what the school uses on the one call. That's probably something totally
I
different.
don't think they do that anymore. I think that's
Yeah,
a
I don't-
dinosaur now.
Yeah, right.
But most all of the companies that you use, whether it's Everbridge or another vendor, are all going to have an app because they're going to want you to go to that app to set up how you want it to come to you. This, even Everbridge, you can opt to get it through email, text, home phone.
right.
I mean, there's numerous options as to how you want to get the messages that come through.
Right, but you do have to do the initial setup.
Yes.
Like that.
Yeah, so all of them are going to be that way, no matter who we would pick.
Yeah.
That's something. It's just a matter of how we want to use it. Our purpose was to get out important information that needed to be heard right now, that we knew people weren't going to go to Facebook and look at. They may have been at work and they're not going to get it, so they're going to get a text if they sign up for that, and it's going to give them a text that says, hey, the downtown Halloween parade tonight is canceled due to inclement weather. We'll schedule at a later time, or something of that nature. That was really what we felt the purpose was when we first got it was to try to get that type of information out. We can use it for a lot of other things. I'm willing to listen. Megan Hall, who is Jeff's administrative assistant, and also my records clerk, she and I kind of administer this. Jeff also has access to do it as well. We each have it on our phones because oftentimes I do them from home. If there's a message that needs to go out and somebody were to call me and say there's an issue in town, I can put that message out from my cell phone at home. And I put all the messages out from my cell phone, even if it's here at the office. And I think Megan does the same thing. It's easier to use on my cell phone than it is to go to the desktop, I'll be honest with you. The desktop program is a little bit cumbersome compared to what the one on the app is.
So people are home or having trouble setting that up and organizing it, they just come in and talk to
They have called
Megan
numerous
Hall
of them.
and-
Megan is excellent with that. I hate to throw her under the bus, but she has walked a ton of people through how to get some of that stuff off that they don't want to hear at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, there's no way for you to get rid of a tornado warning, which I don't think you should be able to just delete that off there. If you're going to sign up, unfortunately, at 2 o'clock in the morning, if you get a tornado alert, you need to know about that. All the other stuff, wind advisories, snow advisories, you don't want to hear about that? Opt out of them. And she'll walk you through that and help you to opt out of all the other minuscule type things that you just don't need to hear at 2 o'clock in the morning, because it's not going to make a difference that you can fix at that moment anyways. Especially like a wind advisory. If it's just a wind advisory, you know the wind's coming because you hear it banging on the side of your house with the trees and everything else.
I initially signed up for the carrier pigeon option, and the high winds, it's like it was just late getting there, so I went ahead and went to text.
I don't blame you.
So, yeah.
Way to go. Way to go. But you do have a lot of options. Email me if you have something else you'd like to see me do. If there's other carriers you want us to look at, we got all summer to do that. We can look at something else if we choose to. We don't have to renew this at the end of the year. If there's a better service out there that fits us better, we're always willing to look at something that's better for us.
There's
That
like
fits everybody.
3 or 4 that some of us found that were apps. I don't know. Is the village interested in that, or we only want a notification system, or we want like where you do more within an app to pay your bills?
I think we would consider other options if the
Submit
council.
your demolition permit,
Right.
or
Yeah, we have options for some of those things already on the website. Like they can.
Well, and then they would integrate like
Yeah.
website and that.
I
Right.
I have used Everbridge in another community. I know there are multiple tools out there to serve that same purpose. What we found in that community, it took several years, 4 or 5 years, before we got a significant participation of residents. And what really got people to sign up was not the emergency notifications, it was the social, the park,
Pie sale.
the garage sales, and so we started putting stuff out that was more socially about what's going on in the community, and people signed up. It took a while, and the boil advisors are important, but they really wanted to know that the parade was going to start an hour later because of the rain or whatever. So those kinds of things, and we had a very large park department, and so the parks people were putting out a lot of stuff about activities at the parks, and that actually got more people signing up than boil advisors.
Man.
I confess we need to use it more than we do, and I'll give you a good example. We have already got people calling in, Jeff can attest to this, about the community garage sales, and how you would be surprised how many people lives for the community garage sale every year that happens that weekend. And we're already getting people calling in because the person who used to kind of administer that is kind of out of sight, out of mind. We don't have any contact with
That's
them.
on the agenda, Chief.
Okay, I'm not trying to get ahead of you, but that's something that we need to put out to remind everybody, this weekend's a community garage sale, because I guarantee it's going to be busy, and we're going to have 3 or 4 crashes, and it's people driving, they're gawking at the garage sales, not paying attention.
You keep going, you're going to be organizing.
I'll pass. I'm done with the garage sales.
Didn't say you could, I said you will.
I'm having a hearing problem. What'd you say, sir?
Next on the agenda is the proposed fire truck purchase.
I was asked to put this on there if there's any other discussion. How do we want to move forward, or you want legislation prepared for the next council meeting?
I think we're all ready to go ahead and move
Yes.
forward.
Let's buy that truck.
Have the
Buy that
legislation.
truck.
I wanted to say it, but I felt like it'd be so cliche.
Okay, on 3.
We're down-
Buy that truck.
We're downsizing it to a pickup truck.
That's right.
You're going to have to determine which route we want to go on financing. So we can prepare the legislation, but between now and the next meeting, if you can get with me or Jill, probably start with Jill and find out what options she's laid out if you don't remember, and then give us direction, because that will need to be in the legislation.
I know we were looking at, when we did budget, being able to, between now and delivery, putting back almost half.
That
Paying
sounds right.
cash
That sounds
for
right.
half, and then financing the other half for 7 or 10
And
years.
not paying anything up front, because
No,
the
not now.
the discount
Right.
wasn't
The discount
significant
wasn't
enough to
good
make-
enough, yes.
justify that.
Right. Yep.
That's fine, if that's what you want.
That's what we had talked about, so.
Is everybody in agreement going that route?
Yep.
Chris, if you don't mind shooting an email to her, giving her a call, but I'll try to make sure she knows to go that route,
Okay.
please. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Chief? I didn't think so.
You waited all this time, we made it that simple for you?
If he'd have just known. Next item on the agenda is the proposed emergency service grant program. There's a copy of the proposed guidelines in your packet. Do you have any discussion or questions? I was not involved in putting this together, so I know Councilor Fogel was heavily involved. I'm not sure who else was.
Thank you for putting
That'd
it
be
together,
me.
Sarah. Yeah.
Councilor Gregory.
That'd be me. We do, I do have 2 things. So we need to create, you sent an email, and this was a really good idea, about doing like a scoring schedule. Can we approve this grant and then approve the scoring schedule so we can get this moving forward? Or do we have to do it all together?
I would suggest, if you, well, you're going to move forward to the next council meeting, by then we can have it all together.
Okay,
But the legislation would probably read you're approving as proposed, with the ability to make modifications that won't require further legislation.
okay, got it.
Does that make sense?
Yep, because I
Counselor?
can do those things. And the dates on here, I just want to say, the dates on here are just arbitrary right now, because March 1st is like Sunday or something, and like
Saturday.
Saturday even better. And so, like, we're not gonna send those out, so once we have the legislation in, we can update those dates.
Right.
Because,
We'll leave those blank, and then you fill in the dates before we
Perfect.
finalize.
Is anybody open to getting the money out to the grant recipients quicker than July 1st? I mean, can we?
yeah, that date is just arbitrary,
Okay.
that's just,
If we could, I'd like to see us award that quicker, whatever's within reason.
like, if we could get the grant out by April, have it due May, we could have the receipts out by June.
Anything we could do to get it where it needs to go quicker,
Yeah,
be awesome.
yeah. 'Cause
Thank you for all your work
It's
on
not super
that.
difficult. Thank you for all your work. It's not like, I don't think it's super difficult, and,
Just get me any changes you want made to it before a week before the council meeting, so we can get a final form in legislation. Excuse me.
Creating a separate fund for
I'd like to talk to Jim. I don't think so.
this. Okay.
Are you ready for number 16? Council appointment to the ambulance board. You do have legislation in your packet that speaks to that. This can be on the agenda again for your next regular meeting. Do you have any other discussion about that appointment that you wish to have tonight?
Two things. Can we nominate Fogel since he's not here? It's a tradition.
If you want to go into a regular meeting and pass it, make it
Okay,
official,
okay.
I suppose you could, but
today.
I think we need to have like another section that states that when someone leaves council and they're appointed to the board, that they vacate that position.
that's
Yes.
a good point.
I would
And then a
also,
new person comes in.
right.
A new person is appointed.
I would also like to see language that says that the appointed person shall actively represent the interests of the village of West Milton on the said ambulance board, provide quarterly reports to councils on matters discussed, decisions made, and any issues affecting emergency medical services in the village, and also notify council of any significant operational, financial, or policy changes that could impact.
How about you send that language to our attorney? Would that-
All right.
Lene, did you get that?
Yeah, and I'm not sure they can do that unless it's already in the board's, kind of their.
I think it is. I think it's actually in the description with the Ohio Revised Code of the trustees' responsibilities too.
Okay.
I'll send you what I got on that, but it just makes sense that we, if we can, outline what the expectation is, because
They will be a council member.
well, if it is a council member,
I
yes.
know, that's what, this doesn't say you have to be on council, so it's just someone that would have to report to the council.
I think traditionally it's been, I mean, I don't
It's
know.
only been one person who was on council. It is
Was
not on
mayor.
council, it's the same person.
I think it goes back further than that, but I don't know for sure.
I mean, this was long enough ago that
Yes.
it's been probably 13 years, I think. So the Miami Southwest Joint Ambulance District they do not require that it's somebody on council. But I think that council needs to require somebody on council, because otherwise it could be anyone, which would be great if somebody wanted to volunteer to do this. But then you've got to make sure that you've got to have somebody staying up with them. Where
Right,
if you're on
right.
council, there's kind of a
I agree
a
wholeheartedly.
responsibility that's included with being on council.
Then does this need to, can this say it has to be someone on council?
Can the legislation require it be a council member?
From your point of view, I mean, I guess we can. It's not a requirement for,
It's not an Ohio Revised Code, but they could
Right.
have it, make it a requirement.
for your
For us.
subdivision, sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I would agree with
A
that.
self-imposed requirement.
And the next question is that board open to us appointing someone to that board?
They are.
They are?
They are. So we met with them and we asked them and we're like, we don't have representation. They're like, send somebody.
I think
Okay.
They were really great. So
Required
we
to have
really,
someone
we had
from
a
us.
really, really good conversation. So, I mean, they're very open. They're like, send somebody.
Okay, excellent.
Next.
While we're still on that,
Wait,
um,
yeah.
Sure.
I wanted to pass this down to you, Jeff. I still think it's worthwhile that we look at an impact study with police, fire, and EMS, and I got a list of places locally or within reason that do that. I think it's something worth considering, just to
Okay.
make sure that we are right size as we grow with the needs of police, fire, and EMS. And
I will do some homework and have it for the next council workshop.
Yeah.
Would that be all right?
I think it would be great information to have as a
Okay,
community.
we can do that. Ready to move to 17?
Ready to move.
As the chief has already mentioned, historically, there has been a local person who has organized the community garage sale. And when I say organized, primarily that just means pick the dates. They would pick the dates and they would create a list. People would call them and say, we want to participate, and then they would create a map that said this house is on the community garage sale. That person hasn't done it for the last 2 or 3 years. My staff has tried to pick up some of the slack, but they can't really do all of that, and has taken a lot of abuse from people who said, well, I wanted to be on it, and my house wasn't on the map. Well, you didn't call us, and so my staff and I are asking, we need to find someone, a local person, who is willing to take the leadership and organize. And it's organized, get a list of all the houses who want to be on it, and pick the date. And I think it can be almost anyone, but it's been without leadership for 2 or 3 years, and a lot of local people have been very unhappy. A lot of
So
local
it's
people.
always that May 15th, 16th,
It's some-
17th, something like that.
Something like that.
What if it's just an unsaid thing and Milton's pretty small, like you just drive around and you find the houses.
That would be possible, except we're still going to get 20 or 30 phone calls from really angry residents because they're not on the map, or where can they pick up the map because they've always had a map, and why isn't City Hall?
We
You
don't do
can't
that anymore.
change history.
If you decide otherwise, obviously that's what we'll do, but I'm just telling you, my staff's going to be back at a council meeting going, you're driving us nuts.
Can we, can I talk to Project Revival to see if they know someone also
That would be
might
awesome.
want to head a subcommittee?
That would be
That's the
awesome.
word of the day. Head a subcommittee for the community garage sale?
Sold.
Yeah, I don't
I
think
think
it's
we'll
a
take any help
good
we can
use
get.
of the staff running a garage sale. Like,
No, but I mean,
No.
that's what Project Revival is for, right? Like, to do community
I
things.
understand that, we get a lot of residents, I guess for years have done that, and they're used to calling in, and the two Megans
Subcommittee.
do the best they can, but they get yelled at enough on other issues to not get yelled at over garage sales.
Yeah.
They really want that taken away. They really want it publicized heavily, not to call town hall for that information. If whoever organizes it wants to drop the maps off and you can pick them up here, that's great, but don't call here.
So Alice Martin, we know you're watching.
She's not.
Alice doesn't live here anymore.
She doesn't.
She lives in Greenville.
She called me.
You know what, Alice? I know you're still watching, and you got a Facebook presence, so put this out there.
She called me, bless her heart, that she was moving to Greenville and that she would miss us.
Oh,
She's in a facility there.
well, you know what, Alice Martin? I know where Maid Rights is, and I'll find out where you're at.
Oh, that's music. Oh, boy.
She'd love you forever.
She
She's a good
did.
lady.
All right.
Old business.
Yes, you have a copy of the next piece of legislation that is required for the Stillwater Crossings NCA. It's in your packet, and that will be on the agenda for the March 11th meeting. If you have any questions or concerns between now and then, please let me know. I know that at least one of you had requested some additional information and some questions. I talked to the attorneys today. They had not got a response completed to those questions, but they promised to have it to me by this week. So once I have that, I'll obviously distribute that to everyone.
All right. Any new business? Is there any motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
Ayes have it.
Thank you all very much for your